Everyone, welcome back to Staying Strong for Marriages, a YouTube channel dedicated to helping those of you going through marital disruptions, divorces, separations, to try to survive, to try to rehab, to try to do what you can to put your life back together, take care of yourself. One thing that I have been doing is questions for Christians. It's been a little bit intense. I want to step aside from that for a second and go back to some cultural trends. Now, maybe this isn't going to be a particularly easy topic either, but I am going to be looking at some of the trends in prostitution. My thought is that I think prostitution is going to be legalized by 2030 in the United States. Now, I don't really have like great reasons for that, but it's just kind of more the intuition as I've looked at a lot of other large-scale trends. While I put this up and do this introduction, I'm going to throw up on the screen just some states or some countries worldwide that have made decisions to either legalize or regulate prostitution and sex work. I initially came upon this as I had done another video on like divorce rates, virtual reality pornography, and someone left me a comment in the comment section. They said, hey, check out our website. We're trying to advocate for sex workers' rights. And I was like, what? I didn't even know that was a real thing. Okay, so before I jump into all the details, where I'm basically going to go is, part A, I don't think this is a great option. I really, really don't. As a Christian person, I'm advocating for marriages. I realize that people have sexual desires, and they want to have sexually fulfilling lives. My stance is the best way, and really the way that God has put forward for people in that situation who want to have that be part of their life, is to go for marriage. Okay, nothing new. I think everyone's well aware of the Christian position on that. But I'm from here going to just look at basically where people come in these two camps. Either A, they're for decriminalization, they call it, and why they hold that stance. And then the other position is, no, we should really try to decrease demand. We should try to do certain policy measures or whatnot in order to curb this whole thing. There's been something called the Nordic model. I'm going to talk about that, a little bit about Sweden. There is some recent history in Canada, some decisions made, and then I'm going to look at kind of where as an American it hits most close to home for us, which is Las Vegas, and talk about, what is kind of the incubator, I guess, the test model that Americans are running. So in a 2018 article in the Washington Post, I just covered this before, and so I'll just hit it quickly. There's this research project, basically this nonprofit group that was advocating for worker rights in California. Basically, the U.S. Court of Appeals, the Ninth Circuit, found their argument not very convincing. They tried a number of different things. So basically, the court decided the normal way that we understand intimate conduct and a normal romantic or sexual relationship does not apply to the commercialized form of sex under prostitution. So it didn't catch any traction. It's pretty interesting. I'm not a big government person, so I'm not sure if that court is super liberal. I know San Francisco, of course, is known for its liberal values and outlooks on life, but didn't get any traction. So this is one interesting thing. I'm going to start with this. It's from a health and human rights journal. Sex work and trafficking, can human rights lead us out of the impasse? So I'm just going to read really quickly the intro here, and it's going to basically highlight to you the two major positions. It starts, sex work and its relationship to trafficking is one of the most diverse policy issues of our time. As seen in the ongoing debate in Canada over a bill that views prostitution as inherently dangerous, so we're going to look a little bit more about Canada here in a second, affecting vulnerable women and offending their dignity. We're going to see both sides using this thing, dignity. Dignity to work, dignity to make money, dignity to not fall under a stigma of society, certain people in society. It goes on, it says, at the risk of oversimplification, the two perspectives on sex work are: one, it is seen as a cause or consequence of or akin to trafficking, exploitation, and violence. So that's the first camp. They're saying, I don't know if you could find any more strong language, right? The other side, two, it is seen as a consensual sex act between adults for money or other valuable consideration, distinct from trafficking. Now, although there has been an impasse resulting from the divergence of these views, there is increasing recognition that the reality is complex and individualized. People experience sex work across a spectrum between compulsion, constrained decisions, and choice. So one of the things that's going to be at the heart of this is this idea of consent, right? That's the big word when it comes to any sexual interactions now. Universities are really pushing students to, have not even safe sex anymore. That's not the big drive. It's consensual sex because they don't want to get involved in all these scandals and all these cases and throwing kids out and parents and lawyers and all that stuff. So that has been, it's kind of, at least in American society, been the big, the thrust, the big push of, get consent. But then a lot of people, of course, as you know, are saying, yeah, but then people can come back and change their mind. There's no witnesses. There's no app. There's no legal thing that ever guarantees that the consent that maybe a person got on Tuesday night is going to still be in effect the following Wednesday morning. People can, say whatever they want. So quickly, I want to jump over for an American perspective. I'm just going to look at the website of a law firm in Las Vegas, Nevada. There's often rumors that something like sexual services, escort services, prostitution is legal in Las Vegas. What it says is prostitution is not legal in all counties. But it goes on that there's some kind of restriction about if you have more than 700,000 people living in a county that prostitution is banned. But then they go on to say something about whatever these loopholes are or something where it says brothels. So I guess brothels. Per Nevada law, sex workers who provide services in brothels must submit to monthly blood testing for HIV and syphilis, as well as periodic testing for their STDs. So whatever. They've found some loophole. Brothels are okay. Prostitution isn't. Whatever. But basically, that this is kind of you could say like the test model for the American system. It's the trial run, if you want to say. I hope it doesn't go this way, but I'm just wanting to bring some light onto the topic as far as, is this, what are we looking like? Going over to Canada, prostitution is now illegal in Canada. A criminal offense occurs every time sexual services are exchanged for compensation. Canada's new prostitution laws, which came into force in 2014, are consistent with the laws now in place in Sweden, Norway, Iceland, Northern Ireland, France, and the Republic of Ireland. This approach, often referred to as the Nordic model, and we'll see that again and again, criminalizes the purchase of sexual services in an effort to end the practice of prostitution itself. So these countries have decided, look, this is a bad thing for whatever. They're going to end up more in the first one that we saw coming out of this article, that sex is seen as trafficking, exploitative, or some form of violence. And so, okay, that's where they landed. So that's where Canada has decided to go. It basically criminalizes, like it says, the purchase. So the big thing to know in this model, especially for those of you, I have a lot of secular comments and things that come through. There's this big movement about, mostly from guys that are saying, look, marriage in the United States, most Western countries, is a great deal for women because if the thing blows up, the kids are going to basically go to the women. The money's basically going to go to the women. So women should be really excited. Why wouldn't they be? Guys, in the same breath, are going to say, yeah, well, if that is the situation, then it's, in the same term, a terrible deal for guys, and we should not get into it, and you're going to hear that a lot. And so one of the things that group of guys seems to talk about and push for is they're talking about, look, escorts, New Zealand, Germany, these different countries that have legalized prostitution. So they may say, look, if we can get sex, that's one of the things that many guys are looking for when they get married in the first place is, fulfilling sexual life, active sexual life. They don't want to get stuck in some, sexless marriage. And so they're saying, look, if marriage is such a raw deal, if the divorce rates are so high and the probability of success so low, then what other options are there? So some people, they'll comment, oh, VR porn. They'll say, oh, sex dolls are really a big thing in China because of the gendercide, the killing of female children. It leaves just the numbers. I just read it was like 107 men to 101 women in Chinese society. Number might be a little bit lower than 107. I saw 102 as well in a book that I just read on Chinese history. But basically the idea is, look, either numerically, or if you're not very attractive, or if you have, say, a learning disability and you're not able to kind of get education and get to a place where you're able to really support a family, where you're not able to get someone to agree to marry you, what are you going to do if you have these still sexual drives, sexual desires? What are the options? Are we just going to, as a society, say sorry to those types of people? Is that the right thing to do? And I'm asking Christians, I know Christians are going to knee-jerk say, well, prostitution is wrong, and I would agree. I don't think it's a godly option. I don't think it's going to work well. I did used to work in mental health and drug rehabilitation, and one of our clients, she was, I think 19 at the time when she was younger. She worked as a prostitute, and everything that she told me, she's the only person I've known that has worked in that quote-unquote business. She didn't have anything good to say about it. She definitely didn't want to go back. She didn't find it enjoyable work, and it wasn't profitable for her. Now, it may have been that she just wasted a lot of that money, but it just seemed like from her demeanor and the small number of things that she told me about it, that it was just awful, and she was glad that she didn't work in it, and she never wanted to go back. Well, you could see there's a lot of stories like that. So how in the world could we say that some people are going to say, well, we should decriminalize this? Really quick and transition and talk just really quickly about Sweden and how basically the Swedish model that we see that like Canada is based upon basically wants to not have the women or the people offering services face any kind of criminal charges or be in violation of the law. The people that purchase the services, those are the ones that are going to face fines. It looks like perhaps jail time, but usually it looks like people are going for like plea deals and paying fines, which can be, it looks like a lot, 50 days worth of income in Sweden. So this is a lot of money. So for those of you guys that are saying, well, look, what we want is some kind of system that, allows men who decide marriage is not worth it, the juice is not worth the squeeze and all of that, we want to have some other options like prostitution. Well, you may find that all of these policies are not going to be in your favor, like the Swedish model, like the Nordic model. Well, here's some interesting things that I was surprised to find. Groups like Amnesty International, these nonprofit groups coming down on the side of decriminalization. I thought that was really interesting. It says, we have chosen to advocate for the decriminalization of all aspects of consensual adult sex work that does not involve coercion, exploitation, or abuse. This is based on evidence and the real-life experience of sex workers themselves that criminalization makes them less safe. And so, I was surprised to see that. I didn't think that a group, as I understood Amnesty International, I just didn't think that they would come down on that. I thought that they would say that there would be loss of dignity, it's not a viable career, something more along that lines. But apparently that they favor the decriminalization of it. So that's interesting. Here's another one. Human Rights Watch. Why sex work should be decriminalized. And this is surprising to me. I didn't think that all these nonprofit groups that try to look out for everybody would kind of fall on that end of things. Isn't sex work a form of sexual violence? No. When an adult makes a decision of his, her, or their own free will to exchange sex for money, that is not sexual violence. It starts to become like a little tricky because people are really, really going to argue about what does non-coercion and what does consent really mean if you're talking about, say, immigrants, if you're talking about people who maybe get into this work because they come from a third world or developing nation. Say people fall on hard times, they have medical bills, and they feel like that they have no other choice to strip or webcam stuff or, whatever. Is that really consensual at that point? A lot of what I've tried to do on my channel, and Premier Study is another channel that I put together, but these study with me things. I'm pleading with people to, if life kicks you in the teeth, to dust yourself off, get back up, put together a plan, and sit down and do the work, to study, to go back to school, to find something in your society that pays a decent wage, a livable wage, something that, I did stuff on stockbroking, I did stuff on loan originators. I don't spend a lot of time doing that, but I definitely think that there's things out there that are solutions besides selling your body. Just my perspective. Okay, so jumping over to the New York Times, and you got to be a little bit careful with this, but I'll read it. It says the United States should follow Canada's lead. Now, when a sex worker is raped, she or he is unlikely to go to the police, fearing arrest. Rapists are well aware of that vulnerability, even claiming to target sex workers because they know we have no recourse. Okay, so I want to make the point because this is a little bit leading. We have these people saying, the United States should be like Canada, and the United States should make prostitution illegal. Well, prostitution is illegal in the United States. What they mean when they say that is the United States should be like Canada in the sense that they should make it illegal for the purchasers. And they even use the word like abolitionists, that they should release those to provide services from any legal wrongdoing. And in that way, they should be able to allow these people to go to the cops if they're raped, if something goes down that isn't kosher, that isn't cool, that is wrong, that is, violent, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when you're talking about it being legal or it being illegal, you have to really read between the lines a little bit, or read the fine print, I should say, because, it's not like it's a wholesale legal kind of thing or a wholesale illegal type of thing. It's certain people are protected, others are not. In closing, I'll read this conclusion from a paper called SexWork Criminalization is Barking Up the Wrong Tree. It was published in 2017. It says, conclusion, it's time to acknowledge commercial sex as widely prevalent and fully legitimate form of sexual relations. For a variety of reasons, many men and women will turn to making money on sex, and substantial groups of people will, also for different reasons, turn to paying for it. There's nothing wrong with asking or giving money for bodily services, provided that it takes place under humane conditions, is fully consensual, worker-controlled, free from discrimination and violence, and no more exploitative than the average job would be ideally. Well, there's an interesting comment, right? How exploitative is capitalism of people who are making money that's below the poverty line, below the living wage. You could get into that whole deal. I think people get into this because it's lucrative if you want to look at it at the per dollar an hour wage. But anyway, controversies on sex work seem to get stuck in simplified, stereotypical imagery of commercial sex, an imagery that denies it being widely diverse and varied, multi-layered, and multi-determined. On and on and on it goes, round and round and round we go. But, I just think this is something that I see is going to be very similar to the way that things have kind of gone with marijuana use and legalization or regulation in states like Oregon, in states like Colorado, I believe California as well. So it was basically pushed through because governments needed tax revenue. They wanted to get in on some of the action monetarily, and so they thought if they could move it into a regulated arena, then that would be extra income in order to, perhaps do some good while at the same time put some money in the banks, and fund maybe other programs. So marriage is a great option. I think, I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work on an individual soul level. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it being what people want. In fact, I hear all the time when I talk about the intuition that I have. I hear all the time people, it's like they're longing for marriage to work, and they just don't believe it will. And this is like bad second choice. All right, you guys. Well, that's my thoughts on the issue. Feel free to comment. Let me know what you think. Thanks so much, as always, and we'll talk to you next time.